You don't notice it at first. The wood beneath your feet creaks in a slow, tired rhythm, each step pressing out a hollow groan that echoes into the dark. The air is damp, clinging to your skin like a thin film, carrying that faint, sour scent of wet leaves and something older, rotting, animal. You follow your friends across the bridge, or at least you think they're your friends. Their voices drift ahead of you, casual, careless, bouncing off the railings. Someone laughs, someone complains about the cold. It's normal, too normal. The kind of normal that makes your brain stop asking questions. And that's the first mistake, because somewhere between the third step and the seventh, you hear it. Another footstep. Not louder, not closer, just off, out of sync. Half a beat behind yours, in like a delayed echo that doesn't belong to the bridge. You stop. The sound stops. You breathe in, sharp, shallow, and the air tastes metallic now, like something damp has been sitting too long in the dark. Your skin prickles. Every instinct nudges you to turn around. But you don't, because your brain is already working overtime, stitching together a comfortable lie. It's just one of them, right? You move again. Step, creak, step, creak, step. There it is again, following. Perfectly imperfect. The more you listen, the more wrong it feels. Your heartbeat starts syncing with it, then drifting away, then trying to catch up again. Your fingers twitch at your side, brushing against the cold metal railing slick with condensation. You finally turn. Nothing. Just a long stretch of bridge behind you, swallowed by darkness. The faint outline of trees. The distant hum of insects. No movement. No silhouette. No one there. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Dude, you coming? The voice snaps you back. One of your friends, up ahead. You turn forward again. And freeze. Because something doesn't line up. There are more silhouettes now, just slightly. Just enough. You try to count them, but your brain hesitates, like it skipped a frame. 1, 2, 3. Wait, wasn't there just 4? Now there are 5. No one says anything about it. No one reacts. They keep walking, talking, existing like nothing changed. And the worst part? A voice joins the conversation. Casual, familiar, almost identical to someone you know. Almost. Yeah, he's right behind us. The tone is correct. The timing is correct. But something inside it is hollow. Like it learned how to sound human without understanding what that actually means. And suddenly, you're not sure if you were ever behind them at all. That wasn't your imagination. That's the entry point. That's how Goatman joins your group. Not with a scream, not with a chase, but with a simple, quiet question your brain refuses to ask. How many people were there at the beginning? Welcome. What you just experienced is the mild version. A controlled scenario, a clean introduction. Because in reality, you don't get a second chance to notice the difference. I'm the one who documents these things, breaks them down, makes them understandable. And tonight, we're dissecting something that doesn't need claws, doesn't need speed, doesn't even need to reveal itself to win. It just needs one thing. For you to trust the wrong person. Or worse. To trust the right one at the wrong time. So before we go any further, take a second. Think about the last time you were in a group. Late at night. Low light. Half paying attention. Now ask yourself this. Are you absolutely sure everyone there belonged? Because once you understand how Goatman works, you're going to realize something uncomfortable. You were never counting as carefully as you thought. Let's get one thing out of the way. Goatman is not just a creature. Not in the way your brain wants it to be. It's not some mindless thing lurking in the woods waiting to jump out and chase you like a cheap horror movie extra. No dramatic entrance, no warning growl, no cinematic build-up where you get time to process what's happening. That would be fair. And Goatman is not interested in playing fair. Most stories will try to give you a clean origin. A scientist, a lab, a failed experiment that mixed human DNA with something less polite. You've probably heard that version. A government facility somewhere in Maryland. A researcher who pushed too far. A subject that refused to stay contained. Something escaped into the nearby forests, adapting, learning, surviving. It's a neat explanation. Comforting even. Because it means Goatman started as something human. Something understandable. Something with a beginning. But here's the problem. Even in those stories, it doesn't behave like something that became this way. It behaves like something that always knew how. Other versions get more poetic. A cursed soul. A man punished for something unspeakable. A body twisted, stretched, reshaped into something that doesn't belong to either side anymore. Half human, half animal, fully misplaced. These stories like to focus on the tragedy. The idea that Goatman is suffering, that it's trapped between identities, wandering bridges and forests because it no longer has a place in the world. Nice narrative. Very human. Very wrong. Because suffering creatures lash out. They react. They make noise. They leave signs. Goatman doesn't. Then there's the third version. The one people don't like to talk about because it removes the last bit of comfort from the equation. No lab, no curse, no tragic backstory. Just a species. A predator. Something that didn't evolve to outrun you or overpower you, but to out-socialize you. Think about that for a second. Every predator you know relies on one advantage. Speed. Strength. Stealth. Goatman? It relies on trust. It doesn't need to chase you through the forest. It doesn't need to drag you into the dark. It just needs to stand close enough and let your brain do the rest. Because your brain is lazy, not stupid, just efficient. It sees a group of people. It hears familiar voices. It fills in the gaps automatically. You don't count heads every 5 seconds. You don't analyze tone, cadence, emotional timing. You assume. You accept. You move forward. And that's the system Goatman was built for. Or evolved for. Or has always been part of. Pick whichever version helps you sleep better. It doesn't change the outcome. Because no matter the origin, every single account leads back to the same behavior. Not attack, not chase, not even confrontation. Insertion, observation, adjustment. It enters the group, it stays quiet, it listens, learns patterns, speech rhythms, names, relationships, who jokes, who complains, who stays quiet. And then it starts participating. Not perfectly, not at first. There's always something slightly off. A pause too long, a response that lands half a second late, a sentence that technically makes sense, but feels hollow when you hear it. And your brain notices. Of course it does. But here's the catch. It doesn't escalate the concern. Because socially, that would be weird. You don't look at your friend and say, "Hey, you sound slightly less human than usual." That's not a normal sentence. So your brain suppresses the warning, files it under probably nothing, moves on. And the more it talks, the more it blends, the more it becomes acceptable. Until eventually, you stop noticing the difference. And that's the moment the system fails. Not when Goatman arrives, not when it speaks, but when you accept it as part of the group. Because from that point on, it doesn't need to hide anymore. It just needs to wait for the smallest fracture, a distraction, a missing person, a reason for someone maybe you, to step out of formation. And once that happens, you're no longer dealing with a group. You're dealing with a filter, a broken one. And somewhere inside that broken system, something is no longer where it should be. The uncomfortable question is this: did Goatmen join your group? Or did it replace someone already inside it? Because if it's the second option, you're not just trying to identify the threat. You're trying to remember someone you've already forgotten. You want to know what it looks like. That's the instinct. Identify the threat. Put a shape to it. Give your brain something concrete to lock onto so you can say, if I see that, I run. Simple. Clean. Useless. Because Goatman doesn't need you to see it. In fact, the moment you're relying on sight, you're already behind. Still, let's give your brain what it wants. If it chooses to reveal itself, fully, unmistakably, you're looking at something that doesn't quite commit to a single form. Too tall. Not dramatically towering, but just enough to feel wrong when it stands next to a normal human frame. Its posture isn't stable. It shifts weight in a way that suggests it learned how to stand, instead of being born knowing how. Its limbs? Slightly too long. Joints bending at angles that don't break any physical rules, but definitely disrespect them. And then there's the smell. You notice that before anything else. A damp, clinging odor, like wet fur left in a closed room, mixed with the sour edge of something organic that's been sitting too long without air. It sticks to the back of your throat. You don't breathe it in. You taste it. Sound is worse, because sometimes there isn't any. You expect movement to make noise. Footsteps, breathing, fabric shifting. Goatman can remove all of that. Not silence like absence. Silence like suppression. Like the environment itself decided not to report what's happening. And then, when it does make sound, that's when things get interesting. Because it speaks. Not in some distorted, monstrous growl. Not in a way that immediately tells you this is wrong. No, that would defeat the purpose. It speaks like someone you know. Same voice, same tone, same casual rhythm. Hey, wait up. Did you hear that? Come check this out. Perfect lines, perfect delivery. But there's always something just slightly off. It responds too late or too fast. Laughs half a second after the joke lands, answers a question you didn't actually ask. It's like listening to someone who read the script, but didn't understand the scene. And here's where things get dangerous. Because your brain will try to fix it. You'll rationalize, they're just tired. Didn't hear me properly. Probably messing around. Your brain will bend reality before it breaks social comfort. That's your second mistake. Now let's talk about positioning. Because Goatman doesn't just copy voices. It copies presence. It knows where to stand. Who walks in front. Who lags behind. Who usually talks. Who stays quiet. And it adjusts. If your group has 5 people, it becomes the 6th. Just long enough for your brain to accept 6 as normal. If someone falls behind, it might take that position. If someone goes silent, it might fill that silence. Not aggressively, not noticeably. Just enough to maintain balance. And here's the part most people don't realize until it's too late. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be good enough. For long enough. Because the more time passes, the less you question. The less you question, the more it stabilizes inside the group. Until eventually, there is no it. There's just someone. Someone who talks, walks, exists in your peripheral awareness like they've always been there. And if you try to isolate the anomaly, to point it out, to say, something's wrong with him or her voice sounds off, you hesitate. Because now you're not just questioning the anomaly. You're questioning your own memory. And memory is fragile. You don't remember exact head counts. You remember impressions. You don't remember every sentence spoken. You remember tone. Goatman doesn't need to rewrite reality. It just needs to sit inside the gaps. And once it does, you can look straight at it, hear it, stand next to it, and still not be able to say with certainty, that's not one of us. So here's the real identification test. The only one that matters. Not what it looks like. Not what it sounds like. But how confident you are in your own perception. Because the moment that confidence drops, even slightly, you've already lost the ability to tell the difference. And that's when Goatman stops being something you can identify and becomes something you have to survive. Being something you can identify and becomes something you have to survive. Goatman doesn't hunt the way you think. There's no moment where it decides to attack. No trigger where it suddenly flips from passive to aggressive. That would require intention. And intention leaves patterns. Goatman doesn't leave patterns. It creates them. Let's walk through it. Not as theory, but as something you are already inside. You're still on the bridge. Still moving forward. Still hearing voices that feel familiar enough to trust. And at some point, without realizing when, the group stabilizes. 6 people. Or 5. Or maybe 7. Your brain settles on a number. Locks it in. Stops questioning it. That's phase 1, infiltration. No resistance, no friction, just quiet acceptance. Phase 2? That's where it starts learning you. Not just your voice. Your timing. How long you take to respond. What kind of jokes you laugh at. Whether you walk faster when you're nervous. Whether you check your phone when you're uncomfortable. It listens, processes, adjusts. And the more it adjusts, the less you notice. Because now, it's not just copying, it's syncing. Then comes phase 3. The part most people never realize is happening. Disruption. Not chaos. Not panic. Subtle shifts. A conversation that doesn't quite connect. 2 people talking over each other when they normally wouldn't. Someone answering a question meant for someone else. Tiny fractures. Hairline cracks in the group dynamic. Nothing big enough to alarm you, but enough to create uncertainty. And uncertainty? That's where Goatman feeds. Because once the group dynamic weakens, it introduces the one thing it actually needs. A decision. Something small. Something reasonable. Hey, did you hear that? Wait, I think someone dropped something back there. Hold up, I'll check real quick. That's it. No force, no threat. Just a suggestion. And here's the part that matters. That suggestion doesn't have to come from Goatman. It just has to be allowed. Because once someone in the group decides to act on it, the system breaks. That's phase 4. Isolation. One person slows down, or turns back, or steps away just enough to fall out of formation. The moment that happens, they lose the only protection they had. Not weapons, not strength, verification. Because as long as you're in a group, there are multiple points of reference, multiple voices, multiple confirmations. Step out of that, and you're alone with a single input stream. And Goatman controls that stream. Now here's where it gets worse. Because the group doesn't always notice immediately. They keep walking. Keep talking. Keep assuming everything is fine. And if someone does notice, if someone says, "Hey, where did he go?" There's a pause. A brief moment where reality tries to correct itself. And that's when Goatman intervenes. Not physically, socially. Didn't he go ahead already? I thought he was with you. Wait, wasn't he right behind us? Confusion spreads. Not panic. Not yet. Just enough doubt to prevent immediate action. And by the time the group decides to turn around, to check, to verify, it's already too late. Because now, there's a new problem. The count. You line up. You look around. You try to reconstruct who's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It matches. It always matches. And that's the final step. The one that makes Goatman different from everything else you think you understand. It doesn't just remove people. It replaces certainty. Because if someone is missing, but the number still feels correct, then your brain does something terrifying. It stops searching. And once it stops searching, that person is gone. Not just physically, but cognitively. Erased from the active system. Now, here's the question you don't want to ask. When the group stabilizes again, when the number feels right, when the conversation resumes like nothing happened, who exactly is filling that missing slot? Because Goatman doesn't chase, doesn't drag, doesn't leave evidence. It just balances the equation. And if you're still in that group right now, still walking, still listening, then statistically speaking, there's a non-zero chance that the equation already adjusted. And you didn't notice when. Let's be real for a second. You're not afraid of monsters. Not really. You're afraid of losing control of your space, your identity, your place in the system. And Goatman, it doesn't attack your body. It attacks your position. Think about how you move through the world. Group chats, friend circles, late night walks, road trips. There's always an unspoken structure. You belong somewhere inside it. You have a role, a voice, a presence. Now imagine that structure continuing without you. Same number of people, same conversations, same rhythm, just not you. That's not horror. That's replacement. Goatman doesn't need to remove you violently. It just needs to remove you functionally. Because once the group stops noticing your absence, once your slot is filled, you're no longer part of the equation. And here's the modern twist. We already live in systems like this. Social media, online communities, digital spaces where identity is fluid, replaceable, forgettable. People disappear all the time. Accounts go silent. Names stop showing up. And what happens? Nothing. The system continues. Goatman is just that idea, given form. A physical manifestation of something you already experience, but never question. Being replaced, being forgotten, being overwritten. And the worst part? It doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like you were never that important to begin with. That's the psychological kill shot. Because fear of death, that's instinct. Fear of being irrelevant, that's existential. And Goatman sits right in the middle of that gap. Now let's talk about the paradox. Because if you've been paying attention, you already know the rules. Stay in the group. Don't respond to voices you can't verify. Don't split up. Maintain awareness. Sounds simple. Almost manageable. Until you realize what those rules actually require. You have to question every voice, every response, every movement. You have to doubt your friends, hesitate before answering, ignore calls for help. You have to become socially broken. Because normal people trust. Normal people respond. Normal people help. And Goatman exploits that. So your only real defense is to stop being normal. To suppress empathy. Delay reaction. Refuse instinct. And even then, it's not guaranteed. Because you're still human. You will slip. You will hesitate. You will answer when you shouldn't. And Goatman only needs that once. Ending survival and outrow. So let's summarize your survival strategy. Not that it will comfort you. Count your group. Out loud. Frequently. Ignore voices that don't have a visible source. Even if they sound exactly like someone you trust. Never split. Not for curiosity. Not for concern. Not even for someone calling your name. And keep the light stable. Consistent. Unbroken. Now here's the part no one likes to hear. Every single one of those rules has a failure point. Voices can be mimicked. Numbers can feel correct even when they're not. Light creates shadows. And groups break under pressure. So what's your actual chance? If you're alone? 0. If you're in a group that doesn't know the rules, maybe 10%. If you understand everything we just covered and execute it perfectly, 40%. On a good night. Which means, even when you do everything right, there's still a majority outcome where you don't make it back. Not dramatically, not violently, just absent. And the group, they keep walking, keep talking, keep existing. Balanced. So here's something you should try. Not now, but the next time you're out with friends, late night, low light, minimal distractions. Stop. Look around. Count. Then wait a few seconds. And count again. If the number feels the same, good. That means nothing happened. Probably. But if you hesitate, even for a second, if your brain needs to recalculate, then you've already experienced the most dangerous part of Goatman. Doubt. And once doubt is in the system, it doesn't leave. So before you move on from this, before you go back to your normal life, ask yourself one final question. When you walk with a group, are you absolutely sure you're still one of them? Stay aware. Stay quiet. And if something feels off, good luck with that.